We used to think that great wealth was not for me, but everything changed overnight when I realized an important fact. We grow up hearing that success belongs to the risk takers, that the only way to build wealth is to bet big, quit your job, and put it all on the line. But what if the wealthiest entrepreneurs in history didn't actually gamble? What if their secret wasn't about being reckless, but about making sure they couldn't lose? Think about Bill Gates. We call him a visionary, a genius who invented the future. But if you peel back the story, you'll notice something different. Gates didn't invent every product from scratch. Microsoft Word was inspired by WordPerfect. Excel was a reimagining of Lotus 1-2-3. Even Bing was a response to Google. Though let's be honest, we all still Google things. Bill Gates wasn't playing roulette with his future. He was cloning what already worked, then executing better. Or take Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. Today, the Walton family is wealthier than Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, but Sam himself admitted he didn't have original ideas. Walmart was essentially a remix of Sears and Kmart. The difference? Walton studied every store he could find, walking aisles, taking notes, even lying on the floor with a tape measure to figure out how others displayed their goods. Where most people see competition, he saw a playbook, and then he executed relentlessly. Even Starbucks, the coffee empire, wasn't invented from nothing. Howard Schultz visited Italy, saw the cafe culture, and thought, why not bring this home to America? He cloned a proven concept and scaled it globally. Here's the hidden truth. If you're a great cloner, you're already ahead of 90% of people trying to reinvent the wheel. We live in a world obsessed with originality, but the real opportunity might be in spotting what already works and then adapting it. So let me ask you this. Why try to create the next spaceship when you could just lease one? Because as you'll soon see, the second mental model flips the idea of risk on its head. When most people think about starting a business, the first word that pops into their heads is risk. They imagine betting their savings, quitting their job, and possibly ending up broke if things don't work out. But here's the catch. True entrepreneurs almost never take big risks. They flip the script. They design businesses so that if they win big. And if they lose almost nothing. Look at Richard Branson. He wanted to start Virgin Atlantic. The problem? Airlines require airplanes. And back then, a jumbo jet cost more than $100 million. Most of us would stop right there. But Branson did something unusual. He picked up the phone and called Boeing. Not through a fancy connection, he literally dialed the main switchboard. When they brushed him off, he kept calling, over and over, until someone finally passed him to the leasing department just to get rid of him. Here's where the brilliance comes in. He didn't buy a plane, he leased one. Boeing had a used jumbo sitting around. They said, sure, you can take it. If you can't pay, we'll just take it back. Branson sold tickets in advance, collected cash before flights, paid for fuel after the flights, and only paid Boeing later. Zero capital up front, zero real risk. And yet he built one of the most famous airlines in the world. Now let's bring this closer to home. In North America, thousands of businesses get started in the exact same way. Take restaurants. A young couple in Texas wants to open a taco shop. Instead of leasing a huge space and buying expensive equipment, they start with a food truck. They test their recipes at local festivals and farmers markets. They let the customers tell them what works. The risk is tiny compared to signing a long lease. And if it works, they can scale into a permanent location. Or look at the world of real estate. Buying a 50-unit apartment building sounds impossible if you're starting out. But many first-time investors begin with house hacking. They buy a duplex, live in one unit, and rent out the other. Their tenant covers most of the mortgage. They live almost rent-free. That's the Dhandho way. Heads you win, tails you don't lose much. Even in your own career, the idea applies. Monish Pabrai shared how he once worked a corporate job. Instead of quitting right away, he kept his job, did just enough to avoid being fired, and poured his extra hours into his startup. He had someone else paying the rent and bills while he built his dream on the side. That's not reckless, that's smart. And think about layoffs. In recent years, huge companies like Meta, Google, and Amazon have cut tens of thousands of jobs. People thought they were safe with a 9-to-5 paycheck. But the truth is, a job can be riskier than a side hustle. Your boss controls your paycheck. Your landlord controls your rent. The only thing you can truly control is how you use your time. So here's the real challenge. It's not whether you're brave enough to take risks, it's whether you're disciplined enough to reduce them. Can you build a business in a way that your downside is close to zero? Can you keep your safety net while experimenting with something new? Because once you stop seeing entrepreneurship as a gamble, and start seeing it as controlled experimentation, the game changes. You no longer feel like you're walking a tightrope with no safety net. You realize you've been walking on the ground all along. Now that you know risk isn't the monster you thought it was, the next step is figuring out what idea to pursue. And here's the twist. Your customers will hand you the answer if you're willing to listen. Most of us think we need a groundbreaking idea to succeed, something nobody has ever seen before. But here's the reality. Your first idea probably isn't the one that's going to work. And that's okay, because the market will tell you what actually matters. Monish Pabrai shared a story from his early days in business. He walked into a bank with a PowerPoint deck full of 10 different services he could offer. He started presenting slide after slide. By the time he reached slide 11, the executive stopped him. "Go back to slide 10, the man said. Pabrai went back, repeated his pitch. Again, the executive waved him back. "I don't care about the other slides. Talk about this one." That one slide represented the pain point the bank actually cared about, and it was the only thing that led to a purchase order. The lesson is clear. It doesn't matter what you think is valuable. What matters is what your customer actually feels is valuable. Let's put this in a North American context. Think about Slack. It started as a gaming company. The founders were building a video game, but it wasn't gaining traction. What people loved wasn't the game, it was the internal chat tool the team had built for themselves. That tool became Slack, which now dominates workplace communication. The original idea failed, but the side feature was the real treasure. Or look at Instagram. It began as an app called Bourbon, basically a complicated check-in service. Nobody cared, but users kept saying they loved the photo sharing part. So the founders threw away everything except that one feature. That pivot turned Bourbon into Instagram. Even small businesses do this all the time. Imagine a food truck in Seattle selling tacos, burritos, and quesadillas. After a few months, the owners notice everyone is raving about the birria tacos, but nobody's ordering the quesadillas, so they strip the menu down. They rebrand as Birria Bros. Now, instead of being a generic taco truck, they're the go-to spot for one specific dish. Lines form. They found their slide 10. Here's the practical framework. When you have an idea, treat it as a prototype, not a final product. Show it to real people quickly. Listen to their reactions. If 9 people ignore you and 1 person lights up, you've found a signal. Double down on that. And here's a trick for getting feedback in today's noisy world. Most people send a generic email to info@company.com and wonder why nobody responds. That's a high-noise channel. Instead, look for low-noise, high-impact ways to reach people. A handwritten note to a local business owner. A personalized LinkedIn message that actually shows you've done your homework. Or even a short video you recorded just for them. These get noticed. This is about listening more than talking. You don't learn by pitching endlessly. You learn by paying attention to what people care about. Separate the signal from the noise. Most of what you hear is noise. But when someone says, "Wait, tell me more about that one thing," that's your gold. So here's the challenge. Stop trying to be the smartest person in the room. Start being the best listener in the room, because the next big opportunity won't come from your head. It'll come from what your market whispers back to you. Now you might be thinking, okay, I get it. Copy what works, keep the risk low. Listen for signals. But how do you actually turn that into wealth that grows while you sleep? That's where the magic of compounding enters the story. Compounding is one of those ideas that sounds boring until you actually see it in action. Then it feels almost unbelievable. It's like money quietly multiplying in the background while you're living your life. Monish Pabrai gave a story that makes this crystal clear. Back in 1626, Dutch settlers bought the island of Manhattan from Native Americans for about $24 worth of goods. Most people look at that and say, wow, the natives got ripped off. But here's the twist. If they had simply invested that $24 at a modest 7% annual return, by today that tiny sum would have grown into trillions of dollars. Yes, trillions. That's the rule of 72 at work. It's a simple mental shortcut. Take the number 72, divide it by your annual rate of return. The result is how many years it takes for your money to double. At 7%, 72 divided by 7 is about 10. So money doubles every 10 years. $24 becomes 48, then 96, then 192. Keep doubling every decade, and after 400 years, you're in the trillions. This isn't magic, it's math. But it feels like magic because compounding is exponential. It doesn't move in a straight line, it curves upward like a rocket. The early years feel slow, but the later years are explosive. Now let's bring it home. Imagine you're 22 years old in North America. You just got your first job making $50,000 a year. If you save $5,000 a year and invest it in a simple S&P 500 index fund, you don't need to do anything heroic. You don't need to find the next Tesla or the next crypto moonshot. At around 10% annual returns, that money doubles roughly every 7 years. 5,000 at 22 becomes 10,000 at 29, 20,000 by 43, 80,000 by 57. And by the time you're in your early 70s, that first 5,000 has turned into around $500,000. And that's just from the first year's savings. If you keep adding 5 or 10,000 every year, you're looking at millions by retirement. This is the part most people miss. It's not about hitting home runs. It's about starting early and being consistent. Every year you wait is a doubling you lose. Think about the difference. 2 friends graduate college at 22. One starts investing right away, putting in 5,000 each year until age 30, then stops. The other spends their 20s partying and only starts saving at 30. By retirement, the first friend often has more money, even though they invested for fewer years. Why? Because the money had more decades to grow. Now let's look at real examples. If you had invested $10,000 into the S&P 500 in 1980, today that money would be worth over $700,000. That's without picking stocks. That's just owning the market. And yet most people spend decades thinking, I'll start later when I make more. But later comes fast. And the longer you wait, the harder it gets. This isn't just about retirement accounts. Compounding shows up in everyday life. A YouTube channel like The Passive Path doesn't grow overnight. It grows video by video, subscriber by subscriber. At first, progress feels invisible, but a year later, the channel looks completely different. The same is true for your savings account, your business relationships, and even your skills. The challenge is patience. Compounding is powerful, but it takes time. The world tells you to chase the quick win, the big lottery ticket, the next hot trend, but the real wealth comes to those who plant small seeds and let them grow for decades. So here's the question to carry with you. If money can quietly double in the background, what would your life look like if you started planting those seeds today? Because money isn't the only thing that compounds. Your relationships, your reputation, your generosity, they compound too. And that brings us to the next principle of the Dhandho way, becoming a giver in a world full of takers. In every business, in every career, there's an invisible scorecard running in the background. It's not just about money, it's about trust, it's about reputation, and it's about whether people see you as a giver or a taker. Adam Grant, a well-known organizational psychologist, breaks it down into 3 categories. There are givers, there are takers, and there are matchers. Matchers believe in fairness. If you do something for me, I'll do something of equal value for you. Takers want as much as they can get without giving anything back. And givers, they focus on helping others, even when they don't immediately benefit. At first glance, it feels like givers would always lose. If you're constantly helping, won't people walk all over you? Sometimes yes, but over the long run, givers end up winning more than anyone else. Why? Because goodwill compounds, just like money. The world has a way of circling back to those who make other people's lives better. Monish Pabrai talked about this from his own career. He would send hundreds of personalized letters to executives. Most ignored him. Some told him no, but a small handful said yes. And those yeses led to relationships that lasted decades. The more value he gave, the more doors opened. You've probably seen this in your own life. Maybe you've helped a coworker with a project, and months later they recommended you for a promotion. Maybe you introduced 2 friends, and years later one of them connected you to your dream job. In North America, this shows up everywhere: networking events, LinkedIn connections, even chance encounters in a coffee shop. That random conversation you have today could become $1 million opportunity 5 years from now. Here's a real story. A teenager in Canada once applied for a reality show, standing in line for hours. He didn't get picked, but while waiting, he chatted with the kid behind him and added him on Facebook. 5 years later, that kid messaged him. His dad had just sold a company for $1 billion, and he wanted to invest. The failed audition didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that a single conversation planted a seed that grew later. This is what being a giver looks like in practice. You don't calculate every interaction. You don't think, if I do this, what do I get back? You just give, you help, you share knowledge, time, or connections. And somewhere down the road, those seeds sprout in ways you could never predict. So how do you apply this in your own life? Start by asking yourself, how can I create value for someone else today without expecting anything back? Send a helpful article to a colleague. Introduce a friend to someone who can help them. Offer your skills for free to someone just getting started. Because when you operate as a giver, people remember, they trust you, they want you around. And in the long run, that trust becomes the strongest form of wealth you can ever own. Now here's the real question. If givers end up winning, how do you make sure you're building a team of givers, not takers? That's where the next principle comes in. The art of hiring and firing. Every entrepreneur eventually runs into the same problem. At first, it's just you. You're the one sending the emails. You're the one making the product. You're the one handling the customers. But then something happens. The idea works. The business grows. And suddenly, you can't keep up. This is the moment where many people get stuck. They think, my customers love me. Nobody else can do this as well as I can, so they hold on. They refuse to delegate, and they burn out. Monish Pabrai explained that the best entrepreneurs think differently. Elon Musk personally interviewed the first 3,000 hires at SpaceX, 3,000 interviews. Why? Because he believed his number one job was recruiting. Not engineering, not sales, not fundraising. Recruiting. Steve Jobs said it too. A players want to work with A players. But the moment you hire a B player, that B player will hire C players. And just like that, the culture begins to slide downhill. Great companies are built on great people. You can see this all around North America. Think about Netflix. They created what's known as the keeper test. Managers ask themselves, if this person wanted to leave, would I fight to keep them? If the answer is no, the company encourages you to let them go. It sounds harsh, but it keeps the culture strong. Even in small businesses, this principle holds true. A family restaurant in Chicago might survive with mediocre service, but the places that thrive are the ones where the owner finds staff who genuinely care about the customer's experience. Those employees become the face of the brand. They attract repeat customers. They make the business more resilient. So how do you apply this to your own path? First, treat hiring like sales. Don't rush. Interview more people than feels comfortable. Look for intelligence, integrity, and drive. These three traits are non-negotiable. You can train skills. You can't train character. Second, don't be afraid to fire fast. It feels uncomfortable, especially if you're running a small business. But holding on to the wrong person doesn't just hurt you, it drags down your whole team. And often, the person you let go will thrive elsewhere in a role that fits them better. And third, remember you don't need a huge team. Start with freelancers. Hire one person to take a single task off your plate. In North America, platforms like Fiverr Pro, Upwork, and specialized job boards make it easier than ever to find people who are better at certain tasks than you are. You don't need to do everything. In fact, you shouldn't. The right people multiply your efforts. The wrong people divide them. Choose wisely, and your growth compounds far beyond what you can do alone. But what if you're not sure where to even begin? What if you don't have a genius idea, or $1 million investor, or a network of A players? That's when the Dhandho way shows you another path. A path built on spotting overlooked opportunities. Some of the best opportunities don't look glamorous. They don't make headlines. They don't trend on social media. They're hidden in plain sight. This is where the Dhandho way shines. It's about finding what Monish Pabrai calls offering gaps. An offering gap is simply a place where people want something but nobody is really serving them well. It doesn't have to be a billion-dollar app. It could be as simple as a barbershop in the right neighborhood. He shared a story. Imagine a new town popping up between two established cities. Each city already has barbers. But the new town? Nothing. One barber from the nearby area notices. Instead of building a fancy new shop, he rents a small storefront. He brings in second-hand chairs and scissors. He only works there one day a week. Suddenly, the locals don't have to drive 30 minutes for a haircut. They line up. The barber charges a little extra because he saves them time. Within months, he's running 2 shops, then 3. That's an offering gap turned into a business. We've seen the same story in North America. Take the Patel family. They arrived in the United States after being forced out of Uganda in the 1970s. They didn't have corporate jobs waiting for them. They didn't have advanced degrees, but they noticed something: small roadside motels were struggling, so they bought them. They lived in the back rooms. They fired the staff and ran the front desk, the cleaning, and the maintenance themselves. They kept costs brutally low. Because they didn't have payroll, they could charge less than their competitors. Guests filled their rooms. They reinvested profits to buy the next motel, and then another. Fast forward to today, and Patels, who make up just a fraction of 1% of the US population, own around 80% of all motels in the country. That's the Dhandho way in action. Now let's bring it closer to everyday life. Look around your own city. What's missing? Maybe your town has yoga studios, but none open after work hours. Maybe your neighborhood is filled with dog owners, but no one's offering a reliable dog walking service. Maybe your local grocery store has 5 different brands of soda, but no kombucha. Each one of those is an offering gap. And the beauty is, you don't need massive capital to test it. You don't need investors, you just need curiosity and a willingness to notice what others ignore. A young man in Ohio once realized his town had plenty of gyms, but no healthy meal prep services. He started cooking meals in his own kitchen and delivering them on weekends. At first, it was just friends and neighbors. Now he runs a full commercial kitchen with drivers across the city. The pattern is always the same. Start small, fill a gap, keep risk low, reinvest, and scale when you know people want what you're offering. Ask yourself this. What's the equivalent of the empty barbershop in your area? What need is hiding in plain sight? Because sometimes the biggest opportunities don't scream at you, they whisper. And here's the final twist. Even when you find the right gap and start building, you'll face another decision. Do you build just to make money? Or do you build something bigger, something that actually matters to people? That's the next principle. And it might be the one that truly sets the Dhandho way apart. Most people say they want to start a business to get rich. That sounds logical, but it's actually backwards. Money is not the purpose of a business. Money is the side effect. The real purpose of business is to solve problems. It's to make someone else's life easier, better, or more enjoyable. When you do that well, the money follows naturally. Monish Pabrai explained this clearly. He said entrepreneurs who succeed aren't chasing money. They're chasing a way to bring their music into the world. That music could be an idea, a product, or a service they believe the world truly needs. When you operate from that place, the work doesn't feel like work, it feels exciting. Look at Patagonia. Their mission has always been about saving the environment, not just selling jackets. That sense of purpose built fierce loyalty among North American customers who would rather pay more for a product that aligns with their values. As a result, Patagonia became a billion-dollar company without losing its soul. Or think about Apple. Steve Jobs famously said, "People don't know what they want until you show it to them." He wasn't designing for money alone, he was designing for beauty, simplicity, and joy. The money was just the scoreboard. Now compare that to businesses built purely to make cash. You've seen them. The fly-by-night online stores that pop up, sell cheap products and disappear. They might make a little money short-term, but they don't last. They don't inspire loyalty. They don't compound over decades. So how do you find your own purpose? Start small. Test different things. Notice when you lose track of time. Notice what feels more exciting than scrolling social media. Maybe it's teaching guitar lessons. Maybe it's restoring old cars. Maybe it's baking sourdough bread and selling it at a farmer's market. For most people, this discovery doesn't come all at once. It's like trying on different shoes until one finally feels right. But here's the key. You don't need to quit your job to start searching. You can test ideas in your evenings, on weekends, or even with just 1 hour a day. And if you're worried about whether you're too old or too late, think about this. Colonel Sanders was in his 60s when he franchised Kentucky Fried Chicken. Ray Kroc was in his 50s when he scaled McDonald's. On the other side, if you're 22, you have decades for your small bets to grow into massive results. Purpose gives you stamina. When you're building something that matters to you, you don't need motivation hacks. You don't need to force yourself. The work itself fuels you, and that energy carries you through the boring parts, the rejections, and the setbacks. Here's the question. If money was guaranteed, what problem would you spend your life solving? What's the music inside you that you've been ignoring? Because once you answer that, you're not just building a business, you're building a life. And speaking of building a life, the Dhandho way offers a clear step-by-step path you can follow. It ties all these principles together into a practical playbook for wealth and freedom. Let's put everything together into a clear roadmap you can follow. This is the practical framework of the Dhandho way. It's not theory, it's a step-by-step approach you can actually use. Step 1. Start by copying what already works. Look around your community or industry. Find a model that's proven. Don't reinvent the wheel, just ask, can I make this 10% better? Maybe it's a coffee shop with faster service, Maybe it's an online store with better customer support. Maybe it's a local business that looks tired and outdated, waiting for someone to modernize it. Step 2. Minimize risk. Don't quit your job too soon. Let your paycheck cover rent and groceries while you experiment. Start small. Test your ideas with as little money as possible. Pre-sell before you build. Use other people's resources when you can. If Richard Branson could start an airline with no money down, you can test your side hustle without betting your future. Step 3. Listen harder than you talk. Your first idea probably won't be the right one. That's normal. Pay attention to what customers lean forward to hear. Look for the slide 10 moment. Look for the one feature, the one product, the one service that solves a real pain point. Then double down on that. Step 4. Find offering gaps. Scan your surroundings like Sam Walton measuring shelves in other stores. What do people complain about in your town? Where do they have to drive 30 minutes just to get something simple? That's where opportunity hides. Fill that gap. Start small. Grow step by step. Step 5. Build with people, not just products. Your team will make or break your business. Hire slowly. Fire quickly. Look for intelligence, integrity, and drive. Surround yourself with A players who raise the bar, not B players who lower it. Even if you're just hiring one freelancer, make sure they're great. Step 6. Be a giver. Don't calculate every favor. Offer help, knowledge, and connections freely. Goodwill compounds. The relationships you build today could become the foundation of your wealth tomorrow. Every conversation is a seed. Treat people well, and the harvest will come. Step 7. Let money compound quietly in the background. Save first, spend later. Invest in simple, broad index funds or strong long-term companies. Start as early as possible. Let the rule of 72 do its work. Your job is not to chase shiny objects. Your job is to keep planting and keep waiting. Now imagine this in your own life. You're 25, living in Toronto or Dallas. You make $50,000 a year. You save $7,000 each year. You start a small side hustle, maybe flipping furniture or running a local cleaning service. You hire one helper to free up your evenings. You put your savings into an index fund. By 35, you've tested 5 different ideas, and one of them is starting to work. By 45, you're earning more from your business and investments than your day job. By 55, you have the option to walk away completely. This isn't about luck. It's about stacking simple mental models, cloning what works, keeping risk low, listening for signals, filling gaps, hiring smart, giving more than you take, and letting compounding do its quiet magic. The question is simple. What's the first small step you can take this week to put this framework into action? Because the next part of this journey is about seeing how all of these principles connect to something bigger, a way of thinking that can reshape not just your finances, but your entire future. When you step back and look at all of these principles together, something interesting happens. They stop being separate lessons. They start blending into a single way of life. That's what the Dhandho approach really is. It's not just about business. It's about how you make decisions. It's about how you use your time. It's about how you treat people. And ultimately, it's about how you live. Think about the themes we've covered. Copy what already works. Minimize risk. Listen for the signals. Find the offering gaps. Hire the right people. Be a giver. Save and invest early. On their own, each of these ideas is powerful. Together, they don't just add up. They multiply. 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It equals 11. Take a look at the Patel Motel story again. They copied an existing business model. They minimized risk by living in the motels instead of paying for staff. They listened to customers who just wanted affordable, clean places to stay. They filled an offering gap by serving travelers in small towns. They hired family members they trusted, ensuring integrity, and over decades, they reinvested their profits, letting compounding work. They didn't invent anything new. They simply applied the Dhandho playbook again and again. The result? Controlling 80% of motels in America. Now apply this to your own situation. Maybe you're sitting in a 9-to-5 job. You feel stuck. You want freedom. You want options. But you're not sure where to start. Start with your time. You have 168 hours each week. You sleep about 56 of them. You work about 40. That still leaves more than 70 hours. What you do with that time is what separates the average from the extraordinary. Replace just a few hours of scrolling, gaming, or binge watching with building something that excites you. Don't aim to replace your paycheck tomorrow. Aim to run small experiments. Send out letters. Make those cold calls. Launch a small product, see what sticks, and remember, failure isn't really failure when the downside is low. If it doesn't work, you're still standing. You can go back to your job, try again, or try something else. The key is to keep swinging. Send not 6 emails, but 200. Knock on doors until someone says yes. Because once you get that yes, you've planted a seed. This way of thinking is not glamorous. It's not about flashy headlines or quick riches. It's about building a foundation that can withstand anything. It's about stacking small wins until they become something unshakable. The Dhandho way isn't just for billionaires. It's for anyone who wants a safer, smarter path to wealth. And here's the truth. Whether you're in New York, Toronto, Dallas, or Vancouver, this mindset works. It works for side hustles, it works for investing, it works for careers. So here's the final takeaway. Stop chasing the next big risky idea. Start looking for what's already working. Protect your downside. Invest early and consistently. Build relationships by giving and treat your time like the most valuable asset you own. If you do this, you won't just build a business. You'll build freedom, you'll build options, you'll build a life where you don't need to roll the dice to win. If this message connected with you, hit like. Subscribe to The Passive Path so you don't miss the next deep dive. Comment with the one principle you're going to put into action first. And share this with someone you care about, who dreams of building wealth without gambling their future away. This is The Passive Path. Your journey has only just begun. I'll see you in the next video.